This needs a bit of backstory, so bear with me a little. 3 years ago, I was in grad school and I was working as a tutor for undergrad students. That's how I met Joe, who was 5 years younger than me. We had a whirlwind romance until I told my mother, expecting her to be happy for me because it was my first relationship where I felt more than just fondness towards my partner. However, my parents are a little on the conservative side, and as soon as my mom learned about the age difference and his various tattoos, she was livid. My parents gave me an ultimatum: either leave Joe or they would kick me out and stop paying for my education. I nearly chose the latter until Joe told me that my education was more important. He said we could always get together after I had had my degree, and despite hating it, I agreed with him. We broke up, but kept in touch over the next year. He graduated and moved to a city a few hours away where my sister Allie was at school. I got my degree and moved to a city nearby, earning my first taste of freedom. Almost 2 years after our breakup, my sister Allie told me she'd been seeing someone for 7 months and sent me a picture of her with him. It was Joe. I could not believe my eyes. I texted him, asking if it were true, and got no reply. I called my mother, who told me that it wasn't a big deal and that they were letting Allie have her rebellious phase, which is something I was never allowed to have, but I digress. I threw myself into work, managing to avoid my family during every holiday and thinking maybe this would help me forget. I found out they got engaged through our mother and later received a wedding invitation. I RSVP'd yes. Now, the wedding is less than a month away and I am clearly not over him. I tear up at the thought of watching him say "I do" to my younger sister. I don't think I can attend their wedding and I'm thinking about using work as an excuse again. My best friend says I'm being an a-hole and I have to grin and bear it, while other friends are saying that I should prioritize my health. I'm not sure what the right answer is, and I thought I ought to ask an unbiased audience. Update. I called Allie earlier, and to say I'm an idiot is an understatement. She knew who Joe was before they'd even been formally introduced. Our mom told her about him when we were still dating. She said that she never brought it up because it never seemed important to her and that since he chose her, there was nothing to talk about. She still expects me to attend her wedding because we're family. I know this is terrible, but I didn't tell her I'm not over him. I suspect she would just laugh. Edit. Thank you so much to everyone who responded. I'm going to stop replying now and cry into a tub of ice cream until I feel better. Future dear husband and I have been engaged for 4 years this year. We are super slow at planning, and this situation happened about 6 months ago. 4 years ago, dear husband and I found out we were expecting a little one. He was over the moon. I had voiced my opinion that just because we were having a kiddo did not mean we needed to be engaged or married. I was totally fine with that. We are both very loyal people, and marriage at that point would have just meant less paperwork to get his name on the birth certificate. He totally agreed. Selfishly, I wanted him to marry me for me, not because we were having a kiddo. I am not ungrateful that he proposed. I can't wait to spend my life being weird with him. Little did I know at the time, future dear husband told me much later, that when Just No mother-in-law and her husband found out about the pregnancy, they begged future dear husband to propose to me. How could we bring a kiddo into the world if we weren't married? That audacity! What would God think? Barf. Just No mother-in-law got under his skin like no other person can do, and she planted the seed that he needs to propose. It just so happened that her husband had an engagement ring in his possession that he had planned to give the woman before Just No mother-in-law, before things went sour. He wasn't using it ever again. Did future dear husband want it? It was a huge diamond solitaire, something any girl would drool over. Here's the total value of the ring. Look, future dear husband, shiny, expensive and shiny. You can't afford to get her something like this. And he fell for it. Let me just tell you, llamas, I am not a diamond girl. They don't make me want to fall over in admiration. I am about the thoughtful, simple jewelry. We were not very well off at the time. He couldn't afford a ring, so he took them up on their offer because he so very wanted to ask me. He proposed 5 minutes after they gave him the ring. He was so excited. Just No mother-in-law's husband told us there were no strings attached to the ring. Her husband is super religious and wanted us to at least express our intentions. Whatever. We had already expressed them before this, but apparently the ring makes it more viable? I don't understand these people. For Just No mother-in-law, there were many strings attached. strings that were now connected to my left hand. Anytime we visited after that, she demanded to see that the ring was on my finger. She would remind me just how much that ring was worth, multiple times per visit. Because she could have just sold it. Did I know that? We should be eternally grateful for the giant financial sacrifice she made, every single time. I started to feel guilty for wearing the ring. If it was so important to them, why did they give it to the future dear husband to give to me? If their finances were so bad, why didn't they just keep it? I was pregnant and super swollen with dear daughter 1 about a year after they gave it to us, and I took the ring off due to being so swollen. Sausage fingers are not conducive to engagement rings. We both profusely thanked them for over a year because it didn't seem that anything we said expressed enough gratitude. But it never seemed enough for just no mother-in-law. When she saw that I was no longer wearing the ring, she freaked out. She demanded to know why I was no longer wearing the ring. Where was it? Did we sell it? How could we do that? Didn't we know that they didn't have to give that to us? That she could have sold it instead? I very calmly told her that it no longer fit on my finger due to the pregnancy, and I would rather take it off than it have to be cut off. She would ask how swollen my fingers were every time we saw her after that. Even after dear daughter 1 was born, she started again with the same questions. My mom had told me a story where she cut my YB face with her engagement ring, and her and my dad sold it after that because she was too afraid to wear it. Cue new mom freakout. I never wore it again. As future dear husband and I started planning the wedding more, and we were looking at rings, I expressed that I wanted a set with an emerald because I am not a big fan of diamonds. Plus, diamonds are really pricey. Just no mother-in-law overheard me say this to her husband, and she asked me why the ring they gave me wasn't enough for me. I told her it was too much for me. Not only was it too big, it wasn't my style. I am not very flashy. She asked us again the same questions. Why don't you want it? It's so expensive. You should be grateful for having an expensive ring like that. Woman, how expensive something is does not concern me, nor does it give something more sentimental value. Future dear husband could have given me a damn ring pop and I would have been over the moon. We started seeing Just No Mother-in-law less and less, but every time we did, she would ask what our plans were for that ring since I was so set on buying something else. I told her we weren't sure what was going on with anything involving the rings yet. 6 months ago, Just No Mother-in-law calls future dear husband. She makes him feel guilty by telling him how financially bad they are doing. She isn't getting hours at work, and her husband is just so upset. The stress is hurting him. Is there any way that they could talk me into giving the engagement ring back so they can pawn it to someone who was interested? First off, why was someone interested in it if you weren't already planning to sell it whether we agreed or not? Second, did you think it was easier to guilt your son than me? Future dear husband sheepishly asked me. I don't think we've ever had a conversation where he looked more conflicted about what he was asking me. I felt so badly for him. I agreed and told him that doing this will get them off our backs. I gave her the ring back the next time I saw her. The look on her face was almost astonishment. Had she planned on me fighting about this and cause a scene? The engagement ring was the last claw she had in us. Giving that terrible rock back meant the only thing she could complain and berate us about was never seeing the kiddos. Good riddance to that ring. I felt better giving it back than the entirety of Middle-earth did when the one ring was destroyed. Can you tell I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan? Hello, llamas. Here I will tell you just what my Just No mother-in-law did with the money that she got from the returned engagement ring. I cannot thank you all enough for all of your comments and advice. It is seriously helping my stress and anxiety to have your support. And know that I am not alone in this. As I look back on what Just No Mother-in-law has done, it becomes so much clearer that we have let her crap go on for far too long. Not anymore. We still do not know whether her husband, father-in-law, not future dear husband's dad, knows about the selling of the Ring of Doom or not. We are trying to figure out the perfect way to do so. We left off when I returned the engagement ring to Just No Mother-in-law in a Ziploc baggie. They had come over to our house for some reason or another. It is always us traveling to them and not the other way around, so this was weird to begin with. Just No Mother-in-law actually waited until father-in-law was out of our house before taking the ring, so he didn't even witness it happening. I felt like a new person without the guilt jewelry. No longer would my finger be held hostage by it. Some background information. Future dear husband has a sister who is more or less a clone of her mother. They are so alike that the two are constantly at odds with each other. They constantly put future dear husband and his dad, father-in-law, geez, there are too many players in this story, in the middle of their toxic fights. Father-in-law has decided he now wants nothing to do with either of them. I wish we were in that same place right now. Here are some quick examples of their toxic relationships. Just Know mother-in-law has called future dear husband on sister-in-law on 5 separate occasions. Just Know mother-in-law thinks that niece is her redo child. Just Know mother-in-law has called the cops on sister-in-law many times, mostly when she is trying to pick up niece from Just Know mother-in-law's house because Just Know mother-in-law doesn't want sister-in-law leaving with niece. And no, I really don't know why sister-in-law keeps letting Just Know mother-in-law watch niece. I really don't. They both play the same manipulation and lies game. You can't believe a word either of them says. When Just Know mother-in-law and sister-in-law are on good terms, she ignores future dear husband and kiddos. When they are not on good terms, Just Know mother-in-law calls us to complain that she never sees the kiddos and misses them and her darling baby, future dear husband, so much. Barf. There are many more examples, but for the sake of this story, I will stop there. So during this time, Just Know mother-in-law and sister-in-law were on good terms. Naturally, because sister-in-law needed something from Just Know mother-in-law, who was more than happy to oblige her. This seems to be a theme between the two of them. Where would Just Know mother-in-law be in life if she couldn't take credit for every little thing her children do? This time, niece's dad had taken all of sister-in-law's money and used it on S&H, leaving sister-in-law and niece with no food or money. Sister-in-law tends to drop niece off at Just Know mother-in-law's house at random for long periods of time and never tells her when she is coming back. When that happens, I get a call from Just Know mother-in-law asking, when can I watch niece? Can niece stay here while she works? Can I go to Just Know mother-in-law's house and watch niece for her? Whatever will she do? She needs to get custody of this child. Or so screeches Just Know mother-in-law. My answer is always no. We do not want sister-in-law to know where we live. We do not want niece's dad to know where we live. They are volatile, and D are involved. They can kindly stay the duck away from us. Future dear husband wants absolutely nothing to do with sister-in-law. No, I will not pack up my 2 kiddos and drive the entire way to your house to watch a total of 2 toddlers, an infant, and a dog for 12 hours a day. I enjoy what little sanity I have left. Fast forward to Christmas Day. We always go to real father-in-law's, future dear husband's dad, house in the morning. Both of our parents are divorced and remarried, so it makes the holidays very hectic. Especially with Just Know mother-in-law, who claims that every single holiday we never spend enough time at her house and she is just an afterthought. She often thanks us for never thinking about her and being terrible people. We pack up both kiddos and head over to real father-in-law's house, hoping that sister-in-law will not start anything with future dear husband. As soon as we walk in the door, a very sick and very green snot-covered niece comes running up to the kiddos and dear daughter 1, being the sweetheart she is, kisses niece right in the boogers. Children are so much fun. I started to beg the universe that whatever niece had was not contagious, because she always seems to have a runny nose whenever we see her, twice a year, and only when presents are involved. Now before this, real father-in-law told both future dear husband and me that they didn't spend much on the kiddos. Future dear husband and I explained that, as always, it doesn't matter the amount that was spent, just that the kiddos get to see father-in-law and his wife. We are very appreciative people and plan to raise our kiddos to be the same way. The amount of money is not what makes something special. It is the thought and the love that goes into it. Dear daughter 1 is already starting to catch on. We start opening presents with our kiddos. They had 2 or 3 things each. Everyone has finished, but niece still has a sizable pile. I tried to think nothing of it. I was a little sad for my kiddos because they were trying to help niece open presents and they wanted to play with her and her excessive amount of toys, but sister-in-law was not having it. They didn't understand. Sister-in-law tried keeping dear daughter 1 away until I explained to her that she didn't understand and just wanted to help. The kiddos had been done opening presents for about 10 minutes and niece was still going. At this point, the mama bear in me is pissed off, but I was holding it together. Father-in-law's wife then tells me that the day before Christmas Eve, sister-in-law showed up and asked her to go shopping for presents for niece. Just No mother-in-law had given sister-in-law a large amount of money to buy niece Christmas presents. Just No mother-in-law has also bought sister-in-law 4 different name-brand cell phones, all of which sister-in-law had broken. Sister-in-law and Just No mother-in-law thought it would be a great idea if sister-in-law used our family time in front of my kiddos as a fantastic moment to have niece open a bunch more presents than what the kiddos received. Just No mother-in-law knew what father-in-law had purchased for our kiddos, so she made sure what niece got was substantially more. Father-in-law's wife apologized and told me she had no idea sister-in-law was going to have niece open them in front of the kiddos. Now this might be petty and bitter of me, but I know this was all planned. Mainly because Just No mother-in-law knew that we did not get our kiddos any presents for Christmas for 2 reasons. 1, we really didn't have enough money to get them much. I took the kiddos to Build-A-Bear and we made kitties for both of them when they were running a buy one get one sale. 2, our kiddos get so many presents from our huge families that we never can justify getting them more. But we always get them stuff for our house, like new and fun cups or small toys. She knew this, and yet she still gave sister-in-law money to flaunt more gifts in front of my kiddos. Can you tell the hierarchy of grandkids here? If not, it goes like this. Niece is about 10 feet in the air. 6 feet under her is dear daughter 1, and about 30 feet underground is dear daughter 2. We no longer bring our kiddos around niece and Just mother-in-law when those two are together. They don't deserve to be treated like that. Just No mother-in-law has wanted nothing to do with our kiddos except to compare them to niece, since dear daughter 2 was born. I have some great future tales of kiddos, niece, and Just No mother-in-law. I was absolutely livid to find all this out. Why would someone plan to use someone else's family time on a holiday to make children fight over toys? They are all under the age of 3, and this is starting already. Sister-in-law had said that Just No mother-in-law had sold the Ring of Doom, some extra money. So Just No mother-in-law decided to bait sister-in-law with it. She took the bait, and over the next couple of months was paying the price of freely taking money from Just No mother-in-law. We go to Just No mother-in-law's house later in the day, and I swear she was waiting for some kind of comment from us about how many presents niece had at father-in-law's house. Under Just No mother-in-law's tree were 3 equal-sized piles of the same presents, 1 for each of her babies. She absolutely cannot stand how much time future dear husband, the kiddos, and I spend at father-in-law's house. We are there once or twice a week because they are amazing people and absolutely adore our kiddos and us. That's the difference, Just No mother-in-law, just in case your feeble mind hasn't figured it out yet. The moral of this story is, when you see a sick child on a holiday, run in the opposite direction. Both of my kiddos were sick for over a month from whatever they caught from niece. Because of Just No mother-in-law's stupid plan, my kids spent over 4 weeks on antibiotics, had multiple infections, and one of them we discovered has a penicillin allergy, and we got to spend time in the ER. It has been 6 months, and I am still angry. Who doesn't tell someone that their child is sick? Niece and sister-in-law should have stayed home. If our kids were sick, we would have rescheduled Christmas. The date doesn't matter to the kiddos. Dear daughter 2, who was under 1 at the time, got the worst batch of the sickness. I eventually caught it too, but somehow future dear husband managed to stay safe and didn't contract the plague from us. As a side note, for those who are curious, niece's dad is in jail, and sister-in-law is away from his bad influence. Her and niece are doing very well and are mostly attempting to stay away from Just No mother-in-law. But Just No mother-in-law can always manage to drag sister-in-law back into her crap storm. So we will see how long this lasts.